Hi, it's Rachel with Stirring the Deep. So I'm diving into and looking into the throne room that you see in Revelation 4. Okay? And again, where the temple, so the throne in the temple is going to be of this creation of man. And this is what you see in this chapter. And so I just finished reading in the previous video in Revelation 7 about these living creatures that were in the midst and around the throne. So that is describing the nature of the throne. Okay, and I said the throne, as you saw in Zechariah, where Christ sits and rules, this Spirit of God is ruling from, right? That Spirit that goes out into all the earth, that's where he's ruling from, is made up of man and woman, one flesh. Adam and Eve, who are made in the likeness of God. Okay? And so you're going back from the beginning. Christ, it says that in Revelation 1, right? He's the beginning and the end, meaning his spirit fills all in all. So he goes back from the beginning and he's filling all spirits and bringing all to redemption. And in this process, God is creating his whole temple about where he dwells. Because as Christ's Spirit moves in, that is the fullness of God moving in mankind so that God's Spirit dwells in man. And that is the temple. And so one aspect of that temple is a throne. Okay, and so in that midst of the throne, you have this living creature, right? And you have a lion, a calf, a man, and an eagle. Now in Revelation, the way it reads, it looks like these are different ones, okay? But when you go into Ezekiel 1, he is also seeing a vision. Okay, so John is like in the spirit going and seeing this vision. So is Ezekiel. And remember, visions just are pictures of spiritual truths. So it's not what's, and the only reason we think this is actually these winged creatures is because we yet to understand the spiritual implication behind it, because these are visions. So in verse 4 it says, "Then I looked, and behold, a whirlwind was coming out of the north. A great cloud," Christ coming in the clouds, spirit, okay, "with raging fire engulfing itself." He's coming as a flaming fire. That is purity. That is saying that pure truth in perfect love. Because when it comes, it's consuming everything that's not like it. Okay? And brightness was all around it and radiating out of its midst, like the color of amber out of the mist of the fire. Also, from within it came the likeness, okay, from this great cloud. Remember, it was God's glory filled the temple like a cloud. The likeness of four living creatures. Okay? And this gets very important to understand, because now he's saying, okay, there's something in this, in the midst, he's seeing these four different living entities. Okay, but they're not necessarily four separate entities. And this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man. Okay? So they had this appearance of a man, but he was much more. Okay? And again, remember, man often means two, female and male. That is what makes up the complete man, right? So it says each one had four faces and each one had four wings. And wings are symbolic of abiding in the spirit realm, because you're of the air, you're of the spirit, right? So that's why it's wings. Okay. And so each one now had four faces. Okay. Their legs were straight, which is their feet were straight, and the soles of their feet were like the soles of calves' feet. They sparkled like the color of burnished bronze. The hands of a man were under their wings on their four sides, and each of the four had faces and wings. Okay, this is talking about these four, the four sides of them. Okay, so in verse it says their wings touched one another, and that's very key because I'll explain that later. The creatures did not turn when they went, but each one went straight forward. As for the likeness of their faces, each had the face of a man. Each of the four had the face of a lion on the right side. Each of the four had the face of an ox on the left side. Each of the four had the face of an eagle. Okay, and the reason, I'm going to explain why there's four, but that will come in a later video, okay, because this truth is building. So first let me explain this. So these different faces is showing the different characteristics. Okay, remember, this is the flesh life that we're like in the pit. We've been dead. So when you start coming in and when you're seeing someone truly alive in the kingdom, the creation, the spirit is beautiful and complex. So this is describing what that spirit looks like, the spirits that are existing in the midst of the throne. Okay, and as that throne is being established, that is the throne through which Christ comes, and then when he starts ruling, right? And so this is saying that these living creatures now, they're living, they're alive because they have that spirit in them. This is showing the different nature of them. And so you have a man, a calf, a eagle, and a lion. Okay, and when you look at how this plays out, what is the essence of salvation? Man, crucified calf, right? That symbolizes that sacrifice, right? Filled with Christ, the lion becomes a spirit being, eagle, wings. You're of the air, you're of the spirit. And that's what you're showing, is that this had a likeness of a man, but this man was a living being because he had all these elements. He was a man, but he had this death of self, this sacrifice, the calf, representing the calf, right? And it was filled with Christ, the lion, the tribe of Judah, who was from the tribe of Judah, becomes a spirit being, the eagle's wings. Wings are symbolizing the spirit. And that's why they have these wings, because it's showing that this is all of the spirit. And not only that, but they're governed by the spirit. So when you start reading the rest of this, it's talking about, let me read in verse 11. It says, thus were their faces, their wings stretched upward. It's talking about the flow of the spirit, right? The path of the righteous winds upward. Two wings of each one touched one another. That's showing the unity between them, the connection between them. And two covered their bodies. Okay? They mean that spirit, everything about them was governed by the spirit from within and without, and their connection with others and upward. Everything is governed by the spirit. And it even says that, and each one went straight forward. They went wherever the spirit wanted them to go. They did not turn when they went. They're not turning their own direction. They're not guiding themselves. They're being completely governed by the Spirit of Christ, by the Spirit of God. That is what's governing these living creatures. And you're seeing the elements that they had. Okay? And these wings, which is interesting because in Ezekiel he talks about, each one having the four wings. It said in verse 8, each of the four had faces and wings. Okay? But when you read in Revelation, it says they have 6 wings. And the reason why he was seeing 6 is because he was seeing the connection from the others. They remember the wings were touching each other. So one creation actually if you looked at it, it would look like it had 6 wings, because the other creature had its wings extended to it. That's showing the spirit flowing between them, and that they're connected in that oneness of spirit. It is amazing. Okay, and so as you go on, in Ezekiel, and you start understanding what this is really talking about, you see that all of these are talking about two, establishing the throne on the left and the right before God of all the earth, right? When you think of a throne, that's how you see it. It's like you have the 2 armrests and the place where, the king sits. It's like Christ is sitting there in the middle, but what's making up that throne is the Adam and Eve. And this is a description of them, because it's a description of their journey and how their spirits now look. Because they carry the Spirit of God. That's like wherever this throne goes, it's not stationary. It's they carry the Spirit of God wherever they go. And ultimately, that's what we all do. Because each one of us, in a way, is our own throne, that we carry the Spirit of God, because He reigns in us as priest and king. He establishes the truths and He reigns by those truths. So you also see that picture within us. But this is just another layer, it's layer upon layer of how this kingdom is going to work. And so that throne is in us. He reigns in us on the throne. It's Christ in us. But you also see that He's redeeming it from the beginning. So the mother of all living, Adam and Eve coming together, are bringing that life, because they're part of establishing the throne. That's part of their redemption. That's the part of that God created them for them to play in creation. And in my next video, I'll go into a little bit more. Till next time, keep stirring the deep. It's the one thing that changes everything else.